It's Monday, April 22nd, and I'm your host, Paula Hersey. On Barnstable Today, we learn more about a Cape-wide recycling program for boat owners and marinas and get an update on the Cape Cod Commission's comprehensive economic development strategy for the next 5 years. Now, for a look at municipal legislative news. The Hyannis Youth and Community Center will be closed from Sunday, April 29th through May 5th for required maintenance. Access will be restricted from the entire building except for the main lobby, where Barnstable Recreation will be open for business during regular hours, Monday through Friday, 8:30 a.m. to 4 p.m. Starting on Monday, May 6th, parking permits and beach stickers will be available for sale. What happens to all the plastic shrink wrap that is removed from boats after their winter storage? Too often it ends up in the landfill. To reduce the amount of plastic waste entering our environment, the Woods Hole Sea Grant Program, in collaboration with the Cape Cod Cooperative Extension, AmeriCorps, and Covanta, is conducting a free shrink wrap recycling program across Cape Cod through June 30th, while space lasts. It's all about recycling. With me today, Carrie Parcell from Barnstable County, the Regional Waste Reduction Coordinator. And there's a couple of programs that we're going to talk about today, but one that's really, really cool. Shrink wrap from your boat can be recycled. But first, Carrie, welcome to the show.
Hi, Paula. Thank you for having me. I appreciate you talking about all these important programs.
We did one on just basic recycling last year, and we kind of talked about the do's and don'ts of recycling. Tell folks at home what you do at the county. What is your position to collaborate with all the towns?
Sure. So I work for the Cape Cod Cooperative Extension as the Waste Reduction Coordinator, and I work with 23 municipalities that include Cape and the islands. And so I primarily work with transfer stations, Department of Public Works, as well as solid waste and recycling. And then there's other entities that get a hold of me with these really exciting programs, and I'm able to assist them as well. So some of the biggest things that you might have seen over the last year and a half, 2 years, are latex paint recycling. Last year you were able to take it to your hazardous waste, and it was a latex only event. Now they're just doing single drop-off, so if you check out the Town of Bourne's website, you can find that there. So we're in year 2 of that grant program. There's processed glass aggregate, or known as PGA. So what happens is glass that's purchased and generated on the Cape will be tipped at the town of Dennis. They will stockpile it. It'll be processed into a construction aggregate that can be used in building, highway, roadway construction projects, as well as drainage fill. So that's really cool. So it's kind of full cycle recycling for the glass. We have several mattress recycling programs. The latest is a regional program out of the town of Eastham. There's going to be 5 towns, 3 of them are grant recipients, so that's pretty cool because mattresses are about 90% recyclable, believe it or not.
Oh, wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so it's really exciting. These are really great programs. And so the latest thing that we're doing is collaborating with Woods Hole Sea Grant, and we're working with Cape Cod residents and boat yards with their boats that are originating from here to recycle that white boat shrink wrap. And what other folks don't know is that shrink wrap, when cut correctly, can actually be reused up to 3 times. So if you don't make it all snug and tight and you cut it correctly, the following year you can actually reuse it. And we all know, well, I don't, I'm not a boat owner, but it can be quite expensive. And it's a, an environmental, there's a lot that can go into the waste stream. So pulling it out and having it recycled is really important.
Right, and it's funny, the shrink wrap itself, I mean, it's just like armfuls of it. Some people use tarps, but a majority of people, especially if they leave the Cape, if they're second homeowners or, snowbirds, they shrink wrap those boats. But this isn't just one entity doing this. This is a fairly large collaboration, isn't it?
It is, and so we have Woods Hole Sea Grant, and then we have CMAS Covanta that actually sponsored the PSA and our step-to-step video. So if you're interested in doing it, please check that out on the Woods Hole Sea Grant website, which I'm sure you'll put up And then we have AmeriCorps, and then we have Cape Cod Cooperative Extension, where my part plays in. But we also had to have collection sites. And so the town of Bourne, the town of Dennis, and the town of Eastham stepped up and said that they would take a collection container. We have AmeriCorps volunteers there during the collection times, and we have several collection times throughout the period through April 16th, which started yesterday, through June 30th, as long as we have the capacity to collect that shrink wrap and assist residents and boatyard folks when they come and make sure the ropes are cut out, there's no strings attached, and they're not dirty, there's no leaves, mud, dirt, grass clippings, whatever, all rolled up into it. And the really interesting thing is the average boat shrink wrap weighs about 15 pounds. So it's a lot of plastic that we're diverting from our waste streams. So that's also a very exciting thing that's happening with that.
15 pounds?
About 15 pounds, yes.
Wow. So we'll just back up a little bit for folks that are out there. The video actually shows you what to do, but give folks like the top 3 things when they're going to deliver this to the 3 collection sites.
Sure, so the biggest thing you want to do is you want to cut the shrink wrap off at the belly of the boat, so it's kind of right above where the ropes and strings are. And you would just cut that down, and the next thing you want to do is you want to lay it out, and you want to kind of I don't know if you collect it almost like a sleeping bag, and it's going to be 4 to 5 feet long, and then you're just going to roll it up just like a sleeping bag, and then you're going to take another piece of plastic that doesn't have ropes or string in it, and you're just going to tie a bow. And it looks kind of like a sleeping bag with a little bow on it. It weighs about 15 pounds, and you're done. And while you're wrapping it, make sure that you're not, in a muddy, puddly area with a lot of leaves and dirt and stuff. Brush it off. And then when you bring it to us, it should look like a nice little package.
Right. So your 3 collection sites, you have Bourne on the Upper Cape, and that's specific day and time?
So that's Tuesdays from 9 to noon at the Bourne Ice Swim, or the transfer station, or some people call it the dump or the landfill.
Okay. So and then Mid-Cape is Dennis?
Mid-Cape is Dennis. They are on Thursdays, and I believe they are going to allow collection between 8 and 11 a.m. And then, no, I'm sorry, Dennis is Sundays, from 8 to 11 a.m. Yeah. And then Eastham is going to be Thursdays from noon to 3.
From noon to 3, right. The website has all of this information.
It has all of that information there for you on the website, as well as the public service announcement and the step-to-step video. And even the website itself shows you some video, and there's a contact in case you have any questions. Of course, you're able to call me anytime.
Right. And you don't need a dump sticker.
You do not need a dump sticker. So if you're going to the town of Bourne and you don't have a Bourne sticker, you're not a Bourne resident, you're more than welcome to come for boat shrink wrap recycling only. Okay. Please do not bring your other recyclables. Go to your own town dump for that. Right. But yes, there's no sticker required. The only real requirement is that it's gathered and prepared for recycling. So those things that I mentioned, no ropes, no strings, don't, make sure it's not dirty. And the other thing about it is it's free to Cape Cod residents and to the Cape Cod boatyards.
Right, so let's talk about that a little bit. I mean, we have several marinas in town, so the marinas can actually participate this as well, because they usually prep these boats for their customers.
Yep, so we're not excluding businesses at all, the boatyards, marinas, and the residents. It's until we reach capacity, so we're hoping that June 30th the program can continue until, but it's when those 45-foot covered container roll-offs are full, and with shrink wrap that's 4 feet wide and 15 pounds, there's only so much we can do because there is a cost to recycling.
Right.
And luckily and fortunately, Woods Hole Sea Grant is taking on that cost for our residents, so we can do it for free. So it's kind of like, we're giving you the opportunity. So give us proper recycled boat shrink wrap prep first.
Right, and you know what? Keeping plastics out of our environment is just one of the things that we have to do here on Cape Cod.
It is. There's a lot of boats, and I've seen some statistics in our public service announcement. Talks a little bit about the number of boats that are out there, and even if so many percentage of them are shrink wrapped and not tarped or left out to the elements, it's a big lift, and so we're excited to be able to offer this. This is something that Woods Hole has been doing. Woods Hole Sea Grant has done before with one container, with appointments only, and so being able to collaborate with the towns and the AmeriCorps and having CMAS Covanta pay for that information video has allowed us to expand the program even further.
That's fantastic news. Yeah. Thanks for coming, Carrie.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me, Paula.
Leslie Richardson, Chief Economic Development Officer for the Cape Cod Commission, joins us in studio for a deep dive into the comprehensive economic development strategy process and document. Everyone needs a plan for economic development. The Cape Cod Commission is updating the comprehensive economic development strategy. With me today, Leslie Richardson. You are the Chief Economic Development
Officer for the Cape Cod Commission.
For the Cape Cod Commission. The SEDS, which is really how it's known, has been updated over the years. But let's start with what is it and why do we have this?
Sure. So the SEDS is the Comprehensive Economic Development Strategy, and it is the sort of blueprint for the region. It encapsulates all of the things that people would like to see different stakeholders relative to economic development. So we reach out to all the towns, we reach out to all sorts of organizations in the region that are concerned with economic development. And it includes their goals and, for the economy and a vision for our region. And then it also includes a set of priority issues and projects. And we update that strategy every 5 years, and then each year we send the U.S. Department of or the U.S. Economic Development Administration. It's part of the Department of Commerce. We send them an annual update about how well we're progressing in completing our strategy. So we sort of revitalized the whole process in 2009. We did a sort of, a little bit more low-profile update in 2014. And then this year we're doing a larger sort of overhaul again, since it's been about 10 years. So we're seeing a lot of the same issues. Wastewater in economic and activity centers certainly is a big issue, building that out, building out the telecommunications network, broadband network, to the last mile, as they call it. And then also housing is a continued issue on the Cape, and it's affordability to not just the lowest income residents on the Cape, but also the middle income residents on the Cape. So,
so let's talk a little bit about, you've been doing this for a number of years. It's reported back to the federal government. What's the importance of laying out this blueprint, and how does the federal government really come into that?
So there's an importance at the local level in terms of just coordinating our efforts and
Sure.
working with our colleagues to know what everybody's priorities are and concerns and strengths. So that is extremely important. And that's why I think the feds encourage regions to do this. So this is something that they encourage regional planning agencies across the country to complete. And in doing so, you can obtain an economic development district status through the EDA. And that comes with some planning funds. So we get about $70,000 a year in planning funds from the EDA because we have a certified SEDS. And with that designation, we also are eligible for EDA funds for economic development projects. And they give funds for planning projects, for infrastructure development projects, and for technical assistance projects. We recently were able to obtain a $2.3 million grant for Buzzards Bay for wastewater because we had a SEDS and because we were able to obtain the Economic Development District designation. So.
Right. What I find interesting is a lot of the times towns tend to work in silos, but this wastewater issue is really an economic issue across town lines, shared watersheds. So has anything changed from, say, that 2009 mark to 10 years? I know, obviously towns are now putting in place their wastewater plans because of 208. Has anything kind of changed in this plan as we go forward?
Well, we're definitely moving forward in the sense that in 2009, in terms of wastewater, we were just still talking about developing it. Now we've got a lot of plans that set forth how it's going to be developed. We've got funding in place towards a lot of plans. We've got towns like Yarmouth and Dennis working together, Harwich and Chatham, and the whole Pleasant Bay area working together. So a lot of progress has been made, and I think that it's always helpful to have that looked at not just from the natural resource perspective, but from the economic perspective, and also from the housing perspective. You really can't have the kind of density that makes housing affordable without the wastewater infrastructure. So that has been a key element of the SEDS process and of what the Commission has been working on for the past decade, 2 decades, 3 decades, really. And and this plan, in 2009, the Open Cape was one of the major priority projects.
Right.
So it wasn't built yet, and it didn't have funding. So that was included in the SEDS, and because it was in the SEDS, that gave us a little bit of a leg up towards getting the funding, and then we got the funding, and then it's been built, and now it's time to make sure that it reaches every household and every business.
Right.
So they can have the best possible broadband
Right.
service.
So Open Cape, just for edification for viewers out there, was the ability to build what we call the middle mile,
Yes.
which provides robust bandwidth from the beginning of the Cape to the end of the Cape, redundancy, which we've never had before. You talk about emergency services. There's a lot of things that went into that plan for Open Cape. And then when you talk about the last mile, that's the piece where they take it from those trunks going down the Cape out to the neighborhoods and to the business centers as well. I know Barnstable's working on something like that for the Hyannis area. What's the significance of having robust broadband and choice for economic development?
Oh, it's huge, really. So I like to compare broadband to your road system. So we've got now the Route 6, and we've got the exits off of Route 6, and we've got some of the major numbered routes, but we don't really have the roads to your house or to your business. Right. And imagine being stuck in your house or your business and not being able to get your ideas and your products and yourself out to the rest of the world. You really need that last connection to be able to have a prosperous business areas within the region, but also to be able to allow people to work from home. And that's particularly important on Cape Cod, where we have a lot of people that live here but are employed by employers off the Cape. And they're in a sense, sort of importing their income onto the Cape. So we want people like that,
right?
Because they're bringing wealth and resources into the region while they're sort of exchanging their own ideas and their skills outside the region. They're exporting those things. So it's very important to the growth of our economy, and in a way that is sensitive to the environmental constraints that exist on the Cape, and also our desire to maintain the historic development pattern. We don't we're not necessarily the place that's going to be recruiting a big business for people to.
Right, we're not going to become the Route 128 belt of technology.
No, but we could have a very healthy technology industry here in different ways if we have a strong telecommunications network.
Moving some of those files for even robotics and the
medicine
drone files in medicine. Telemedicine is starting to really become an industry that could be embraced here on the Cape if the broadband is adequate. Yep. So let's talk a little bit about the stakeholders. You mentioned that in your beginning statement, but the stakeholders really, when you went out and started to talk to people, who are those stakeholders?
Sure. So the obvious first stakeholders are businesses on Cape Cod, and we have a strategy committee for the SEDS, which is also the Barnstable County Economic Development Council. And we have Cape Cod Healthcare on that, for example. We've got Hydroid is represented there. We've got several developers, and then we've got associations. So the Home Builders Association is on that board. The Tech Council is represented in part on that board. We also have the CCYP, the Young Professionals is on that board. So we've got a whole variety of different organizations and different businesses in key industries. And then we do a whole outreach effort associated with the SEDS. We had a large kickoff meeting in January, and to that we invited organizations from the Workforce Investment Board to the chambers across the Cape, including the Cape Cod Chamber, the Tech Council, all of the towns, certainly, and then any large businesses, and we tried to reach out to small locally owned businesses as well, like certainly the banks, Cape Cod 5 and the Cape Cod Cooperative Bank of Cape Cod, and they're actually on our board as well. So we do a comprehensive outreach for that.
So, and everybody has their own ideas and what drives, but there eventually becomes some consensus of what's going to go into this particular SEDS plan. This will be released, it'll be on your website soon?
Yes, so we are meeting with our strategy committee on Tuesday morning, and soon after that we will be releasing a full document for public comment. It will be available for 30 days for people to comment on, and we really, really encourage people to take a look. Right. Focus in on the action plan. That's where all of the individual projects are identified that people came up with through the planning process. And they're all organized under 9 basic initiatives. And those initiatives have to do with housing, business development, workforce development, infrastructure, including transportation and other types of infrastructure. So there's a lot there. Right. And we would like as much feedback as possible, particularly on, how doable this is, how important you think it is. I think we're going to be issuing a survey as well to allow people to prioritize some of those projects and initiatives. Right. So we're looking for some robust feedback, and we will be going out to different organizations. We'll be meeting with a group called WorkSmart that is put together by the Workforce Investment Board and represents a lot of different industry sectors and similar groups that we've reached out to throughout the SEDS process. And then to town planners, we'll be meeting with them all next week, talking to them about local comprehensive planning and how that relates to the SEDS.
Right, I know Barnstable's gearing up for our local comprehensive update, so
right.
It seems like it all comes into play as as we look from federal to state to county to municipal, having something county region wide as a blueprint, and then being able to fill in the gaps for your own municipality is really important. Yeah,
and in relation to that, I should say that we get directives from the feds about generally what they'd like to see in the plan. We take the goals from the regional policy plan, because the regional policy plan, which was recently adopted for the county, sort of gives the whole full picture of what our goals are as a region in terms of environmental protection, economic development, housing. And all of the things that the Commission Act makes the Cape Cod Commission responsible for, all of the things that make the Cape Cod place a special place. Right. So the SEDS kind of falls under the regional policy plan, and then the local comprehensive planning would touch on the themes both in the regional policy plan and in the SEDS. And then hopefully with the local comprehensive plan, you then go to the zoning and all the bylaws, and they are altered and changed to reflect the goals of the local comprehensive plan, which in turn support the goals of the regional plan, which in turn support the goals of the state and federal. So it's all very organized.
It's all very organized. And again, with all of those entities, having everybody on the same page. You're seeing it now at town meeting, April through May, for the rest of the towns out there with accessory dwelling. It seems that all of that is on warrants across the Cape for their April and May town meetings. So it's interesting to see how something that may have been 10 years old is actually starting to come through fruition to the zoning piece of it now. Great work out there.
Yeah, and I mean, I was once told that planning is like running a marathon, and that really is true. People would love to have instant results, but that's just not how it works. But that doesn't mean you don't persevere, and you do see results as if you do persevere.
Excellent. Thanks so much, Leslie.
Great.
Here's a look at the upcoming meetings for boards, commissions, and committees. Up next, things to do, places to go, and people to meet. A speaker series dedicated to educating the public on the effects of military service has on families of servicemen is coming back to Cape Cod Community College this week. The Toll of Service on Military Families is hosted by the Cape and Islands Veterans Outreach Center and features family members of the United States military service men and women who will talk about the experience of having a child, sibling, or parent in the military this year. The program is presented by Paul Monty. Paul is the father of Jared Christopher Monty, a soldier in the U.S. Army who died in Afghanistan on June 21, 2006 at the age of 30. The program will be held at the Cape Cod Community College on Friday, April 26. While admission is complimentary, space is limited, and guests are asked to RSVP by sending reservations to gina@capeveterans.com. Comments, suggestions, accolades? Connect with us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Email us or send us an old-fashioned note by carrier pigeon. Channel 18 works. For you, I'm Paula Hersey, and thank you for watching Barnstable Today.